I cannot hear anyone if anyone is speaking.
This is Mara. Can you hear me?
There we go. Cool. Awesome.
And there. Yes, it works.
Huzzah!
It works.
Oh, fantastic.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Well, thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right. So I'm just going to see if I can pop out of the chat and stuff and the waiting room. Awesome. Keep that there. I'm not too sure why we had a waiting room this time. I must have forgotten to unclick that. Oh, well.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, nice. We got like a core group coming back every week. Oh,
Hey
so
guys, Jeremy's checking in.
So how's everyone doing?
Actually, great.
Awesome.
Great as can be.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I suppose we may as well get this thing started. So just like always, feel free to jump in and ask questions whenever you feel like it. And if you can stay muted until you want to talk, that would be great. Just to keep down on background noise.
Okay.
And yeah, I think we can take it away. And I'm going to remember to full screen myself so that I don't record all the talking heads for the whole time. So yeah,
Okay.
if you want to get started, if you want to, we're
Yeah,
all good to go.
Okay, so I'll just click the share button.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take over this work. Can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay, wait a minute. I'll go full screen.
You're all good. It's going to be recording my screen. So
Okay. Yeah, can you
it's
see
on
it?
me. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I see it.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to go through the process of how I did my first children's book. And I'm going to focus more about the communication with the editorial team itself, rather than the process of making art. I think this is going to be a session for me as like a debrief session in a way. So please just jump in, and it's my first book, as I said, so there's a lot to learn. So I think focus on talking about communication. We can just share a little bit of a like behind the scene kind of.
Yeah, sounds great.
So,
I may pop in with questions about the art anyways, but
yeah. So I received the first the message start on Instagram. Actually, the editor of one of the largest publishing house sent me an Instagram private message asking if I'm interested in doing a book, and it was a surprise because it was like it's in the middle of the Inktober, because I think I was posting a lot, and that maybe triggers like she sees my art on her feed a lot. So that might be triggers. She remembers, oh, there's an artist, and then we need a book get done, and then she contacted me. I get you. Yeah. So the first thing I was kind of like, when I was in that situation, I have no experience. I said, okay, I back to thinking about how I do my design work before I start illustration. So I basically used my interaction design process into a illustration project, especially on the side of how to handle clients. So I thought, first I need to figure out, do I want to do the project? So I need as much information as possible to figuring out, like, am I the right fit? Do I like the theme? Do I want to do it? Can I do it? Yeah. So this is a list of things that I initially got from the editor. So the theme, what the book is about, and how many pages. Is it full color or black and white? What's the deadline like? How much time do I have? And they actually sent me a a laid out dummy book with only text, no
Oh, wow.
image,
Okay.
which poem goes where, because the book is a collection of classical Norwegian poems for kids, like rhymes. Think about like the Mother Goose rhymes. It's similar kind
Yeah.
of book,
Yeah.
classical rhymes. So they actually laid out the entire, like, we want the poems go this way. Like,
Mm-hmm.
here is page 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Oh,
And then they give
interesting.
me the dimension, the book dimension, and then the last thing they said was about the payment and royalty with a contract. That was the last thing we discussed about. And interesting enough, because it's a very small market in Norway, so the payment with a very experienced illustrator and new illustrator, the difference is not so big.
Oh, okay.
The difference is not big at all, actually. So there's very little room for negotiation. So
So
that's what
they've
I
got
learned.
like a nice set rate, and that's what you get.
I negotiated.
Oh, fair
I
enough.
tried. So you always negotiate in the situation. I take the advice from SBS. Like, you
Yeah.
negotiate with all sorts of things. It's not just payment, but you also negotiate all the other things around as well. I'll get to that a little bit later. So then I go in to ask, like, why is me chosen to do this project? So I
Yeah.
asked the editor, which image made you contact me? And I think that's important for me to evaluate if I can do the project, because some of the image I know it takes 2-3 days to make it, or a week, and some other image they spend 1 hour, so if she's choosing the style that is very time consuming for me, then a short time frame for a project for 40 pages of book will be impossible.
Just ain't gonna make sense. Yeah.
So we talked about it. We went through the Instagram feeds, and she pointing out which pictures she liked and why she likes it.
We have a question
So
from Neha, and it's was all the communication via email at this point? Like, did they call you, or was it all
it was
email?
all in email. I tried to get a meeting with her. It's so funny. Our office is literally 10 minutes walking away from each other. But I think because editors' life is really busy, they have like they deal with multiple projects at the same time. They're always multitasking. For them to have a meeting with you, it's really, really hard. So in the end, everything is handled via email. So up to like, I met the editor on when the entire project is done. I delivered final art. I went to the office to see the proofreading.
Okay.
That was the time I actually had a chance meeting the editor. So yeah, so everything's done over emails. And I even asked if they could give me some like art styles from other artists. I just want to know how she thinks. What is she actually looking for the project? And then I asked, am I in charge of graphic design? Because I could do that. I actually would prefer to do it, but I didn't get a chance to do it. They have their in-house graphic designer. And then I negotiated the payment and royalty, and also discussed like the detail on timeline. Like, when do you actually need the sketch to see the sketch? When do you need to when you absolutely need a final art? So just talk through things in detail. How would you like me to communicate with you over like during the process? How often or how little do you want me to communicate?
What stages do you want me to tell you where I'm at?
Yeah. So I thought like making things easier. So I showed her this. I showed her a screen where I explained my process. Like,
Nice.
I told her, you would get the rough sketch with a couple of variations normally, and then you get a color study and you get a final art. And so we can talk about things in rough sketch, we can talk about things in color study, and then we will proceed to the final art. So in this way, she understood my terminology. So that was my worry, is like when you say rough sketches to a non-designer or a non-artist, they can be interpreted in so many different ways. And also color study. What is a color study? So I'm working with a fairly experienced editor. Of course, she knew these things, but I think this is kind of probably more relevant to show this kind of process to if you work with a self-publisher author. That would be very helpful, I think. So I just sent off this, and it, of course, it made the editor very happy, even though it's unnecessary. But she was very happy. She thought, okay, this person is very organized. That's kind of made her relaxed a bit, because I think when you work with someone you never worked with before, like my biggest job, since I'm providing service to my clients, my biggest job is to make them feel comfortable working with you.
Absolutely.
Like giving them confidence, basically. So then after the contract signing, before making art, I spent quite a bit of time to kind of just look through what I can discuss with them before showing them sketch, like how much I can get out, just getting information out from them first, like trying to understand what has been communicated internally, like do they talk, well, basically understand what the editorial team wanting the book to be. So I asked about the vision, like, because there's so many classical rhymes book out there, why do they want to make a new one? What is the reason to do that? And then I asked them about selection criteria. Why is this particular collection of poems being selected? I asked what target buyers are they thinking about. I asked about any rhymes has any connection with like a historical connection, or like origin of there's any the story behind the rhymes. And then I also asked about why the order of the rhymes that they've been chosen, putting together in a certain way. Is it flexible to change? Because it's quite important. You might, and like in this case, like I end up in the situation where there's some rhymes that putting together, but then suddenly there were like 2-3 spread, which is all spot illustration.
Ooh, yeah.
And then you don't want that. You want a variation, spot illustration, and then full spread, right? So I asked if the order is flexible. And then they gave me some restrictions, and then told me they are like where is the place that they feel you can do flexibility, be more flexible, and where is the place they really absolutely want the order to be. So it made things much easier. I think if I come in, don't ask, they're trying to follow their order, then I'm giving myself unnecessary restriction, because there is a room to change.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I would think like my philosophy is that if you can think of asking anything before doing art, just ask.
Do it. Yeah.
Do it. They never feel like there's no stupid questions in this place, and there's no need to think there's any stupid questions, because any question can actually trigger a nice conversation that gives you more on
Absolutely.
what the editorials has been talking about. Because most of the people are really not good at summarize information for you. You have to make a dialogue going to get the information out from the people.
Absolutely.
And then of course there's I went in to ask about the technical side of the thing with the book as well. It's not so much about relate to illustration, but it's always nice to know to begin with what am I aiming for. So soft cover, hard cover, dust jacket. Do I need to design the wrap over around the cover? Because it's also trying to understand what is my job, what is the graphic designer's job.
Are they going to be coming to you at the end of the line saying, "Oh, and we need a dust jacket, by the way"? So
yeah. It's very interesting, because sometimes I think it's like with everyone has this. You never remember to tell everything to the person next to you in the project. It's always you need to ask the questions in order to get the information out.
I getcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If there's something that you're not familiar with, like the like a had to make the jacket and design the wraparound and stuff like that. How helpful are, well, I don't know if you probably already knew going into this, but how helpful have publishers been with that kind of stuff, or editors?
They normally give you it's standard. They give you a template. Like they will tell you how much bleed and you need to have, because the cover bleed is slightly different from the interior.
Okay, so they provide it.
Yeah, they provide a
Awesome.
mock-up for you, like what do you call the template? Yeah, they provide a
Yeah.
template with all the
Okay,
measurements.
cool.
And they also tell you where the logo should be.
Yeah.
All these things. Yeah.
They're probably doing the
Thank you.
same thing as you are, trying to get as much information to you as possible.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they have certain routines, so they make sure. But then very often they will forget, and then you have to ask, where is that template? You need to ask. Like they will, out of all the stress, they will say, "Can you give us a sketch tomorrow? Or not tomorrow? Can you give us a sketch in a couple of days with what the cover looks like? Because we need to show it to the marketing marketing department." Then yes, you can do the sketches, but then they will probably think of giving you the template later, because they haven't really thought about at that moment because they're stressed. So it's always nice to have a list of questions that, and then you can send them a question to ask: Is this item ready? If it's ready, to send it over to me. You kind of need to collect all the list that you need from them.
Speaking of questions, we have another question on the chat. And were you communicating just with one person throughout this whole thing, or was this with you communicating with a whole bunch of different designers?
There is one main person I'm communicating. They call it the visual editors of the editorial team. So the team consists of one visual editor, several text editors, which is in charge on the words and the text itself and the selection, and they have a say of, for example, the order of the rhyme, the order, what is important, they have a say. And then the designer comes in towards the very end. So the main person I'm communicating is the visual editor. I think in English world it's called art director, but in Norwegian they call them the visual editor.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then they work as a team, very much as a team, because when sometimes, for example, the visual editor is traveling or sick at home, then the text editor would just step in to answer my question instead of waiting for the visual editor coming back to the office. So that was very nice. They always answer very timely.
Hey, Lee, I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, this is Jeremy. Hey, guys. So Lee, this is a great process. I had a question. So the editor was your main point of contact.
Yeah.
Did he or she ask you to do like a competitive bid and inform you that there were perhaps multiple illustrators that they had in mind?
Mm-hmm.
Or did they just go full source and they just loved your work so much that they said, we just want to go with you?
I have no clue. I actually never asked her. I didn't know the behind the scene, but the interesting thing about this editor is that we have been following each other on Instagram for a couple of months by then. And then I have bought a few books that she has been posting on her Instagram feeds, because I really liked the book recommendation. And then and then I had a half-written email to her on my computer. I was composing email. I've been trying to send my portfolio to her, and then she contacted me right before I sent out the email. I was like, "Oh, yeah." So sorry
that
about
is
the noise.
funny.
Yeah, and then just kitchen. Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I find it very funny that you say to remind them often to send you the templates or to send you information. I have the exact same experience, so you need to prod them very often.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
It's happened to me so many times that I send sketches, and then a week later I send an email like, so what do you think of the sketches? And they say, oh, you're good to go. I thought I answered you already, didn't I?
No,
okay.
that's
you
terrible.
need to be on top of it, because they are so busy like she said, you have to run after them to get your stuff.
So I don't
Yeah.
have to feel guilty about following up with emails every week or so.
No, what I even did is like whenever I send her a sketch, I'll tell her like, you need to give me a reply in this before this date in order for me to deliver things on time. I
Yes.
always do that. So,
Good
to
idea.
make sure that they reply you like timely. And especially with this project, it was very tight schedule. It was a bit scary for me to say yes because I have never done so many illustrations in one go. So
Can you tell us more about that, about the timing? How did you schedule yourself in order to accomplish in such a short time? 3 months, right? About 3 months?
yeah, it's about 3 months. Yeah. So we will go into that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Will I continue?
Please do.
Yeah. So then after being talking about so I got enough information. The first thing I started is by reading through the text and making notes. So can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah. So in this part, I just made like all the objects and people that is mentioned in the poem.
Oh, that is a
It's
really
like
good
put
idea.
down. And this is like a visual reference, and then hanging or like right in front of my desk, so I know what I need to draw inside the book. And then I have assigned 3 to 4 keywords for each poem. Like this emotional keyword there tends to be adjective, so it goes with like optimistic, fun, adventure, playful. So then I know the things I draw, this is the feeling I want to convey. So I have these 2 sets of words that I can play together with, combining. So that's my prep work. And then, of course, I go into to do the mood board for the book. I just mood board is,
yes.
yeah. So I made like a gigantic Pinterest, and I keep adding things. So it's basically anything like, oh, I need to draw a fox, throwing a fox. So fox I like. Oh,
I
this is
recognize
nice.
one of those foxes, honestly enough. Yeah.
So this is like a nice color palette. I want this color palette. Oh, that's a spring feeling. You know, I just like just throwing a lot of stuff. And this is the schedule. This is what the Braden and Vanessa has told me to do, to make schedules and set mini deadlines. So I basically take the advice, and then this is what I did to break down. So I had one higher, like a big, I had kind of thought about, okay, I have 3 months, and then I need to spend maybe 40% of the time to sketch, do a rough sketch and color study, and then 60% of the time of final painting, because my painting process is quite slow. So I thought I needed the 60%. So I kind of roughly divide them into 2 camps, and then I see, okay, so 40% of the time of sketching and color studying, that means I got about a day's time to do one spread of a rough sketch, to come up from thumbnail to the rough sketch that I can send in. So then I just plot them into like morning, afternoon, and evening time slots. I have a couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours in the afternoon, and a couple of hours in the evening if I'm lucky.
Wow.
So I just made this, and then I try to not put things in the evening and weekend as much as possible. So I have a buffer. So in case I don't have enough time, or I got stuck in one spread, I need more time, I can always put in the evening time to catch up. So that was my strategy to do it. And then this is really helpful. So then every week I can see like, do I meet my deadline? So spread seven will be half of the book. So within the first week, I will know if I meet my meeting deadline. If I don't, then I have to see, can I catch up? How much I'm missing? If it's too big of a gap, then I have to contact the editor to negotiate the time immediately, not waiting until the last moment. Because I already knew I'm behind, then I don't want to wait. It actually happened during the final painting stage, when my husband got sick, my kids got sick. So suddenly there was like a week time that's gone on the schedule, and now I was like, what do I do now? It was like still a month away from delivering the final art. So I just filed the email to the editor right away and told her I need more time. It would be too stressful to deliver. And then they give me an extra week.
Yeah, I've heard a lot that they don't mind at all giving a bit of extra time as long as they know that you need a bit of extra time, right?
Yeah. So don't tell them the day before the deadline. Then it will be like a really nasty surprise for them. But if you tell them a month ahead or 2 weeks ahead, it will be really. It was just for them. It was just they will not be stressed. They see that you are actually planning. So it actually give them the impression that you are very organized, and that's important for them to feel comfortable in working and feel confident in you will deliver the work on time. Yeah. So this thank you, Braden. This is very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. So when the project got started, the editors told me it's important for them to get the cover on the first week, but not a finished cover, but a cover that they can present to like book clubs and bookstores to promote the book before the book is done. And so that's kind of it's every country has a different publishing milestones, dates. Like it's like in Norway, I think they have maybe 2-3 times a year they meet with book club and bookstores, and then the editors I think maybe the sales and marketing department they pitch the books to these stores and book clubs, hoping them to buy in, and that is happening way before the book is done. So what they need immediately is a book cover or a cover that gets people excited. So so I just started doing a cover. That's the first week and a half spent on the cover. So thumbnails, a lot of thumbnails. So I do things like I take one idea like this one, I just reverse and did this one. So there's a lot of variations and just play around with things. And I try to go with a slightly different emphasis on the thumbnails. And this is I pick up 2 thumbnails and then work a little bit more to see if it will work. So this one is more about like optimistic. That's more keyword. This one is more on the playfulness. So just try a little bit of different approach. And this is what I sent to the editors after done the thumbnails. This is a rough sketch I sent. So this is the template I got from Lee White on how to do presentation, on showing the clients different options of design, basically.
Yeah, so, this is what I use too whenever I can. It's like 1, 2, 3. Here's what I'm going for.
Yeah, and each one of them with a bit of a description on what this is about. And I did a little bit more on putting, like, this is the first slide. So this is basically 4 pages of PDF I sent. The first slide I show all 3 options in one page, and then I go into kind of make notes, because my drawing is so rough. I'm afraid that they're going to misunderstand things, scribbling. Yeah. So I just going, instead of draws a lot more, so I just going to just put on the labels on things to save time. I think this one takes me 2 days to put them together, I think. So I'm a very slow drawer. So if I need to draw all this things to be very readable, then it just took too much time.
No,
so it's a shortcut for me. Yeah.
Will you be comfortable sharing like this presentation like on the Facebook page once this is all done, like as a download?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't checked with the editors, but I don't think I need to. I'm not sure. What do you guys think?
If the book is already published.
Yeah, the book is already published. Yeah.
It should be all right.
Okay. Yeah.
If I were you, Lee, I would share the presentation with your editor and just ask them if it would be okay to share with a select few students that mess the guest. And then if she feels uncomfortable, you can maybe ask for a few pages to be redacted, and then you can just share it loud, just so you don't don't mess up your reputation with the editor.
Yeah, I can just let her know.
May as well. Yeah. No, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Personally, I don't mind to share this at all. Yeah.
Whatever you feel comfortable doing.
Yeah. So this was the cover they picked, as you already see the final cover, so no surprise. Yeah. And so before going to the color, again, I used this trick of anything I can communicate in the email before I start doing it. I ask questions. Have you guys talked about the color preference internally? Is there anything I should keep in mind? So I actually asked the same question in different angles several times, just to get the conversation going, to let them tell me things, or let them tell me what they have been talking about. And then I asked, does it make sense? I throw in ideas without doing any sketch. Does it make sense to do early spring because the book is coming out in spring? So things like that. And then they do always generate more information for me to work with. So that's very nice. They will tell me oh, we want the color to be magical, yeah. So it's always nice to ask a lot of questions. And so when I did the color study on 1 to 3, I sent that as the first batch, and then they came back and said, yeah, we like it, but maybe you can tweak a little bit more, and we want to see maybe the autumn, an idea of an autumn color palette, just to see how it feels. And then there was also a comment. I think they like the idea of the color being a bit more magical, but then again, they want the trees to be green. They want the skies to be blue. And I think it's more, also they want to be magical, but also familiar. So the trees, the color study number 3, the trees were a bit too blue. The skies was too purple for their taste. Yeah. So that was it's interesting. It's because the book has to be approached by, I think the target audience was grandparents or uncle, aunts. Basically, it's like a gift book for naming days and baptizing. Yeah. So it's in that setting. So they want something to be very, very familiar for everyone. But on the other hand, they want something to be magical. So it's almost sounded like contradictory, but this is how it's interesting. You have to see the art to decide yes or no. It's hard to describe it in words, but it was a fun discussion. I personally really like the autumn approach, but I think in the end they decide on spring.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like the autumn one too.
Yeah, because I think a lot of books on a baby rhymes, they tend to be green and spring-like. So the autumn will be more unexpected, in my opinion. I think the editor likes the autumn one as well, but they in the end decided to go for a more familiar color palette. I think they are thinking about the target audience, the buyers. Yeah. And then this is ready for marketing. And at this stage, it's because it was so short. I think if I do it again, I wouldn't do it this way. But because it was so, the time frame was so short, I didn't do a wraparound at all. I was just making a sketch, or fairly detailed sketch for the front of the cover. I had thought about what I would do in the back, but I didn't sketch it out or anything because I was just wanting to get the front cover done before worrying about the rest. But I think all in all, it takes longer time. If I do the wraparound together with the front page, it will be faster. And also at this stage, when I painted this, I didn't think about bleeding at all. The cover measurement comes quite late towards the process. So in a way, the ready for marketing illustration is more like a very detailed sketch for them. Yeah. So the background, I ended up especially with the trees, I ended up more or less repaint the whole thing in the end, just to match the back, the wraparound, and the bleeding. Yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the characters stay the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I do love that fox.
So again, before starting the interior illustration, so when I did the cover to this stage, then we just say, let's worry about the rest of the cover by the end of the project. So let's jump into the interior first, because now they have enough material to go with the promotion or talk, starting a dialogue with bookstores and clubs and stuff.
We've got another quick question. Are you allowed to make minor changes in the cover after it goes to marketing? Like, I guess, like, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But you need to keep the overall feeling, not giving them the entire new covers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. That will be a surprise. So, but you can do a lot of tweaks. Like in this case, for example, you can even replace like the mill house with something else. The rider, remove the riders, like anything in the background. It probably doesn't really matter so much when you change in the end. I think if you replace the boy with something else, there might be a bigger issue. In the end, I had to redone the typography, because in the beginning I thought the typography would be the graphic designer's work. But then
Oh, it was your job.
The editor actually told me if I can do a hand lettering at this stage, and then this is the case it's a bit ambivalent, because it wasn't really specified on the contract whose job it is, because it's hard to think of all the scenarios. So I ended up doing it without extra charge, but I think for the next project I'm trying to specify that. That comes with experience, what you need to specify in the beginning, because this is not discussed, and I don't want to make the process like, I don't want to have like to make a trouble in the process. I just said yes.
Yeah, I getcha.
And it's also the first collaboration. I trying to really make things smooth. But I think next time when we come to the cover illustration project, always ask who is going to do the typography. And that will be on my list to ask the question, who's going to do typography? If you want hand lettering, then there will be an extra cost on that. I think I indicated that in the communication with the editor, like there will be an extra cost on the hand lettering.
Yeah.
But then she came back to me, and she first said yes, of course, and then she came back to me and said, there's basically indicating there is no budget for it, because it's kind of like being discussed. So I think it would be much easier for her, because in a way I have to think that she is an employee in the large organization. It's not her decision on how much budget on the project it is. It's someone else's decision, and I think that's a really important mindset that we illustrators need to have. That it's not the editor doesn't want to pay you extra money. It is she has her difficulties on the budget. So if things are not discussed in the beginning, that comes in the middle of the process regarding on the budget change, it's always difficult for an employee within the organization, because they always set budget in the beginning. So if we as an illustrator can gather as many questions to the editors in the beginning, and the easier job for her it is to kind of see overall and then propose the budget to the organization in the beginning. Yeah, so I thought through things, and I didn't want to make things difficult. So I just said, yes, okay, let's do it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But that's a good point for the next project.
So Lee, that sounded like it was scope creep, and which we hear a lot about from Lee and Will and Jake. But given the fact that this was your first book, I can see why you would want to give it to them free of charge for goodwill, and for coming to you in the future as well, for future opportunities. Did the editor know this was your first book?
The editor actually didn't know it was my first job when she gave it to me. She knew it towards fairly end of the project. She knew it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we didn't talk too much about my background. She didn't ask very much questions. She was. I think it maybe comes with the setting. I mean, Norway is a small country, and I think the trust between businesses are quite high here.
Okay.
Like it's very unusual for anyone to, like in Illustrator world, it's unusual for anyone to go with a lawyer when you have a contract from like a reputable publishers. You just basically sign it with the only thing you probably negotiate is like royalty and payment. The rest is a fairly standard contract. They have their unions have like set the standard. As a graphic arts union has set a standard on the contract, and most of the publishing contracts look fairly standard. I think it's unheard of anyone goes to a lawyer for a contract here. But I think in the US it's a very different story.
Yeah, it is.
As I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you for that.
Yeah. So it's a small market and a safer market to work with. I think. Also lower pay. Yeah. I always use the same strategy on communication, as I always ask lots of questions. Like before I started with interior illustration, I just run through ideas I had with the editor via email. Like anything that I don't need to sketch and just ask a question, can I get an answer, I ask. The first question was more of a general, like, do you have a historical setting in mind? Since a lot of questions are like classical, right? Does that matter, or do you want it to be contemporary setting? And I think that's very important on the overall tone of inside the book. And then I go into like ask questions in detail with like a rhyme. Oh, I want to like kids with different race in the book, because in Norway depends which side of the city you're living in Oslo. Some of the side is kids in kindergarten are fairly white, and some other side of the kindergarten are very multicultural. But I wasn't sure what the take on it. And this is before I heard the whole diversity talk in the children's book industry. And then when I mentioned this to the editor, she was really happy, because I had thought about that. So I did the book with kids with all races in the book. It was very fun to draw. And then I throw in ask, like, is drawing fairies? Like, can I include fairies as characters in the book? And I said, no, it's not very Norwegian. What about a troll? It's like, yes, the troll is very Norwegian. So we just go through like ideas, and then they also come with their own ideas. They wanted the kid in the cover to be the main character, sort of let the readers go through, like the kid will come in every spread, so you have some main characters to follow. So that was the idea. We had a discussion on that later. So my with the suggestions I get, I have like two modes. Like if I say yes to something, then I would try to think, can I add something in it? When they told me the kid to be main character, their reasoning is to have something that the readers can follow along. And I said, yes, this is a really good idea. And I can add maybe a little bit more. So I ended up adding like mouse families in each spread. So there's a kid and there's a mouse. And then there was one poem, there's like the mouse become a main character because the poem is about a mouse. So that was a very interesting, fun for me to play with. Suddenly the mouse is the main character, then I hide a kid in the background somewhere. So it was really fun to play with that. And then they also said about the main character of the kid. And then I kind of like, I said, maybe not, because we could have a kid that goes through the whole book, but then maybe in some spread he could be just in the background. Because my idea was like, I want a subtle message to children that it's okay to not be in the center of the universe all the time. So you could be like the main character in one poem, but being in a background character in another poem. So you can sort of make it more like your world is a little bit bigger. Sometimes your friend will be the main character.
That's very cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So the editor also was very, very happy about the idea. So I think it's like when the editors come in with their suggestions, it's never saying that they want you to do this. And it's always a good idea to take it as a suggestion and then play with the ideas. Yeah. And then they are very much open for ideas and suggestions, and like the way of playing ping pong. And yeah.
Sometimes when you receive suggestions as an illustrator, it feels a little bit like an order, like, okay, this is what I need to do. But it's important to remember that you are their expert. And what you have to say is very important to them. You're not just a hand hired to draw, but they want you to give your expertise. So when Sheen came up with this idea and said, I think this is a good idea, they loved it. And that's what she was there for.
Yeah. I think it's also important when you say no to something, you always need to propose something that you think it will work. It's like to be solving their problems. Or, like,
sometimes editor will give you bad ideas, and it feels very awkward to say that this is a bad idea, but it's your job to do that. And to explain to them, I think that won't work because, the colors will clash, so maybe we don't do that. And they count on you to do that, to tell them when it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll have to remember that one, because I'm kind of like, I automatically kind of slip into a, yeah, sure, we can do that, why not kind of mode. So
I like the idea of to think like, if I do that, what can I add
Absolutely.
to the idea? And if I say no, what is my proposal? I think that's the two mode I trying to exercise on it at least. Yeah. So with the interior illustrations, I didn't give them multiple sketches. It was just simply not enough time to do it. And I also told them in the beginning that I can't do that. Like, I think it was prior sign was when we were talking about the process, like when I showed like the how I do my illustration process, and I told her that I can do several options of sketch for the cover, but not interior, because it's just not simply enough time to do that. And I think this is a very it's an easier way. This book is an easier way for me to enter in the children's book, because I don't have to worry so much about the pacing of the story, since each poem is on its own. It made things slightly easier for illustration. Like, I think the page, breaking the page down for a narrative children's book is probably I need to have scheduled like another good amount of time for that. But for this one, I don't need to do that. I just jump into each poem and thinking about that poem and do it. It's not so much, the continuity is it's not so much of a problem. The only thing I need to keep in mind is don't put two spot illustration together, like here. That was a problem. Then I think in the end of the book, we switched the pages a little bit, so these two pages are not together. And so I sent I sent half of the book, half of the book sketch first, and then I sent another half a week later. So they get I gave myself a little bit of mini deadline to a mini milestone to reach, and it's easier for me to do it that way. So I think she was not expecting to get like half of the book first. It was entirely up to me how I would like to do it in this stage. So this is the all 14 spread, and then with each spread I just send them like like when I made a PDF, this will be the beginning of the PDF, and then I give them each spread and with a little bit more information. So will be some keywords and some thinking behind, like why I chose to do it this way. Very brief thinking. And then there's also like a season, because they were talking about they want a variation of the season for the scene throughout of the book. So I make the mark. So it's the whole book is starting from like the morning and then ends with the evening. So it's like going through a day kind of feeling. But then they want a variation of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, with 3 different outdoor scenes.
Are those digital sketches or manual traditional sketches?
Are
those digital sketches? Like, did you sketch that using the Procreate or Photoshop?
It's Photoshop. It's Photoshop.
Okay.
Sketches, yeah.
It looks very pencil-like.
It does look very traditional.
Is it? Thanks. Yeah. I think it's just one of Kyle's pencil drawing, and then I used a brush that I got from Lee actually for the tonal. It's a rough watercolor brush, and I always use that one for tonal sketch. It gets some very rough. If you press very hard, it gets really dark, and then if you draw lightly, it's very light.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a very rough. It's like lots of texture on it. That was nice.
Did they indicate that like the level of detail was what they were normally expecting, or was this like more detailed than they were expecting?
They indicated that in the beginning when I showed the process image, like from thumbnail, rough sketch, and color study and final art. The editor told me that what she wanted, something between the thumbnail and the rough sketch, will be good enough.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and it was really nice because for me, like I was like, can people actually read stuff like this without being illustrator? It's like, is this too rough? You're always afraid that they will misunderstood. They don't understand your drawing, or it's too rough. It's just scribbling. It's always.
Honestly, your sketches, like what you're showing us right now, that's very detailed. Sometimes the first round of sketches that I send to an editor is very like stick figures, and they understand them very well. They're very used to it.
Wow. Okay, I can get away even more.
Oh yeah.
Well, for like thumbnails, I always I don't discuss like themes and ask as many questions as you do. But I prove my concepts with them by sending them a lot of thumbnails that are very, very, very quick. And I'm so surprised that he can't even understand what they are. But apparently they're very used to that.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, so I can get away even more. Yeah. Yeah. And this was the one that they come with, like, oh yeah, it's a poem, something about like riding, rowing a boat across the Kattegat Sea. It's a sea, I think, in between Norway and Denmark. And Kattegat, it's starting with cat, and cat is a word cat in like the animal cat. So the editor, like, oh, maybe there's a pun here that you can play with. And then when there's a new character comes in, then of course the kid needs to fight with the cat, with a Viking boat. So it's really fun. They wanted to be a bath scene as well. That's also come from the text editor's idea. I think it was a very fun to take their idea and add on top of a Viking boat scene. And yeah, fun to play. I find it really fun to just write my idea to the editors and ask them for input. Yeah, so it's originally I want to do mermaid here, but then I said no, mermaid is not very Norwegian. So
fair enough.
No. And then I just use the same template, and when it comes to the color notes, sending the color sketch, I just use the same template in InDesign and then replace the black and white images with color. So this is the final art. So what I need to do is put everything. When I had doing the illustration, I always have text in it. Just place the text there, so I know there will be a text. Then I can see, like, do I leave enough space for the text, even though I'm not.
Sure, and they'd given you the text like at the very beginning. You said, right, like in the book dummy, they'd showed you the text size and where it would go anyway, right?
No, not the size.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah, it's the text I got was just like a Times New Roman 12.
Oh, okay.
It's not layouted in any way. But then I just I print out a couple of texts just to check, like, okay, this is more or less the size most of the book will be. Like with children's book, the text I just kind of like roughly guessing, how big the text will be readable, and I had some graphic design background in the past, so I kind of know, like, okay, with book, like, it's likely it's going to be this size, it will be okay. So I make sure to put the text there when I'm sketching and drawing. But in the end, you always need to remember to take the text out. Otherwise, it would drive the graphic designer crazy. So I give them a folder with like everything TIFF, and it's flat. All the layers is flat. That I actually didn't ask them what they prefer, like a separate layer or flat. They didn't specify anything, so I just give them a flat layer.
Interesting.
What you guys do in this stage? I didn't get any questions when I send off this. I wonder what other people do.
It's a real good question. I'd assume it's flattened in general, unless otherwise asked for.
Yeah, I always send just flat, except one time I did a board book and they asked me to send a layer PSD with everything on different layers so they could move stuff around, and I was insulted.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I will do that, but I felt very insulted.
Okay, yeah. The only place that they asked me to give them a separate file was the cover. They asked me to give the cover, like now you can see the cover here. They asked me to give the text in different layer. That was the only thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense. They because they used what's the page called, the title page. They did the title page themselves. I didn't. Also the table of contents. So they probably need the text somewhere. Then they need to change color because it's handwritten text. So color and stuff. Yeah, that's what.
I noticed the author is not named on the cover. The author usually. I see you're named on the bottom.
Because it's a collection of poems. It's not one author. It will be so many names. So they didn't name it.
And some of them they don't know, right?
Yeah, some of the poems they don't know the name. They don't know the origins. The author's name is, if they know the name, the author's name is always listed after each poem's title inside of the spread. And I'm just going to show this cover on, like, this is without bleed, actually. This is the area I painted.
Ooh, that's a lot of bleed.
It's a huge, I think it's 2.5 centimeter. That will be like an inch around.
Yeah, it's like an inch of bleed. That's a lot of bleed.
Because it's a what do you call it? If you can see my screen, like they wrap around.
Yeah.
They just wrap around, and then they paste this here. So this is the title page they did. I didn't know what this looks like at all until I got the book. So after I sent the file, and then they did some test print on the interior page and the cover page, but I didn't get to see. I almost didn't get to see the page layout before they sent to a printer. They in the end, I asked the graphic designer to show me how the layout looks like. But I think if anything has a problem, it probably was too late for me to say anything because it was like the day they're gonna send to the printer. But it's partly my fault. I didn't follow up. I should told them, like, hey, can I get the when you've done the layout, can you send me a PDF? I should have followed up that early on. But this is also something I think people are so busy in the publishing house. They tend to forget things. You always need to follow up. Even though we agreed this, that they will send me, like when the graphic designer gets done the whole page layout, they will send me and ask for input or whatever. But it was just never happened. 2 weeks later, I haven't heard anything from them. I was like, hey, maybe I should ask them. Then it was like on their way sending the files to the printing house. And I realized like, oh, these people are really busy. You always need to remember to follow up if you wanted to see, if you want to have input on, have a say on the graphic design side of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was it.
Wow. That was incredibly,
Yeah. It was very, very interesting.
That was incredibly informed. Like, I now have a process for when I get to do a book.
Yes. Very important process.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, in the recent podcast episode, Lee was talking about bleed and how he gives much more than the 1/8 inch, you know, or 1/4 inch all the way around top and bottom than normally. It looks like you did the same thing, which is just interesting.
Yeah, this is actually when I got the template. I followed the template and did that. And then when I showed it to the editor for the sketch I sent over to the editor, even with the final painting, I show her this just to make her understand, like to get a feeling of what the cover looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they have a lot of experience, you probably don't need to do that. But I think it's a good practice.
Yeah, not a bad idea.
Yeah, just to make it think just a tad easier for them, to let them think less. You know?
Yep.
Yeah, you could also do the full size and put crop marks on it too. That would be a way to kind of do both at the same time.
The crop.
Yeah, I like seeing it with the white border, honestly enough.
Yeah, that is nice too.
Yeah. Yeah, the crops.
Yeah, it's a little like if you had little ticks on the top and bottom of each side, so they knew where the cut was going to be if you didn't want to make another page.
No, yeah.
Fair enough.
True. Yeah. I just thought like they don't need to do the visual translation in their mind when they see this, you know. It's like, oh, that's where the relationship with the text will be. You know? Oh, this is how much it's going to be cut. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have too many questions because you were so thorough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing. So, yeah, no, we've kind of got a roadmap for questions to ask and what to do, and that thing with just like picking out nouns, that was a really good idea.
Yeah, I wonder what that trick I learned from the book cover design course at SBS.
Mm-hmm.
It was Jamie Zola was talking about that, and her process is really interesting because she does this process is related even more to cover design and the interior for middle grade and YA novel, because they tend to have so many characters and so many objects, and you know, the fantasy novels, they have like so many objects and different things that they mention throughout of the book. Mm-hmm. So this is a way of like, well, especially when you read through the text, this is a way to just to keep log of your what triggers your visual idea. You know, just like write down everything.
This is such a great idea, and I'm totally stealing that.
And it's very fun for me to have like this sketch note-ish thing hanging on like right in front of me when I'm doing the sketch thumbnails, and to think about all these characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have another question from the chat. You mentioned you went for color check for sample prints. Did they call you for it specifically?
That was a little bit of a back and forth. I think it might have some kind of misunderstanding when I say check the color print. But first they said no, it's not their practice to do it. And I also talked with a lot of illustrators locally. None of the people has ever done anything like that. Which was very shocking for me. Because I had worked as a graphic designer in the past. This is always part of the process, and doing like a brochure or a book layout and stuff like that. But then apparently, like nowadays, I think the printing gets printers gets better, computer monitor screens gets better, so the color difference is smaller nowadays, I guess. And in Norway, they don't ask artists to do color check, but they do production check technically inside inside the organization. I don't know what they check, how they check, but they told me they always make sure the color will be okay. And then they told me that they work with so many books per year, and no illustrator ever come back and complain about the colors. So I just have to go, okay, I trust you guys, what you guys doing. And then I also check with all the illustrators I know, and then that's their process. They never check the color print. I was like, okay, then I rest the case. That's fine. But then in the end, one day they just suddenly out of nowhere, the graphic designer asked me, hey, the test print is here. Do you want to see? I was like, yeah, sure. That was nice.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, I think we can pretty much wrap it up then. Oh, Mara, so the last question is, do you have any more book projects lined up?
No, not right now. I'm really bad at doing promotion. I was talking with Braden on
Me
Facebook,
too.
remember?
Yep.
So I was like, I'm terrible. Like remember we started doing this mailing list, Google Doc, like back in October. And I still, it's the last 2 weeks I start sending out emails to publishers, and I still haven't sent out the emails to the Norwegian publishers. That's the to-do list on my to-do list. Basically, I haven't reached out at all. Nobody knows who I am.
Yeah, that is my problem too.
So I really need to spend more time on this.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, thank you for doing this. This was an amazing presentation. Next week, it looks like Nadia will be showing us her art, her process. She's in our, there's her website.
Oh.
And thanks everyone for coming out. I'll post this online.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on second questions. Yeah. Thank you everyone again. This is awesome. This is incredibly informative for me at the very least, and I think for everyone else as well.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
thank you. It was awesome.
Are you going to send us a link for Yahoo?
Huh?
A link for what, sorry?
Send us a link for Yahoo? No, the
Facebook?
YouTube.
Oh yeah. I'll post the link for YouTube on SVS and the Facebook page. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks a lot, everyone. See you later.